Allen, Neal, Casey, and get that extra safety in there. Say it's a 1st and 10 and they're running out of a base set. Why not run a three safety set and have Allen and Casey play deep and then just drop Keanu Neal down as a linebacker? He's already the size of a linebacker. It's not like you're having him do anything too different than what he already does. So have that ability to flex your scheme.
Yeah, I'm a big fan if the Falcons decide to go with more three safety looks this year. We saw them dabble with it a little bit during parts of last season. It wasn't just anything necessary that they were going to throw out too much just because Demonte Casey, while he did play fairly well when he did get the opportunity to get on the field, he's a rookie and he's still learning things. Hopefully he will have picked up more. And so the expectation was that they would use more three safety looks even before they signed Ron Parker. But now, after signing him, I do think that does signal that the Falcons may be looking for that sort of interchangeable piece more so than what Casey is, because we still don't quite know where are Casey's strengths just because he's still making that conversion to cornerback. And so there's certain things that you think he should be able to do at a really high level, but we just aren't quite sure yet because he hasn't had as much time to prove it on the field. But Parker is a guy that has done all of those different things. Pretty much anything you ask a safety to do in the NFL, he has done at various times through his time in Kansas City. So I do think at the very least he gives the Falcons an option if in the event that Casey isn't quite ready to take over that load. And also obviously gives the Falcons a valuable depth piece there at the safety positions. So I am definitely looking forward to more three safety looks. I'm definitely looking forward to the Falcons utilizing some dime looks, particularly in some matchups against teams like Green Bay and Giants, as well as maybe Pittsburgh as well. So those are some of the teams that I think these three safety looks and these 6 DB looks in the dime will be very effective. So, Scott, you got anything else to add about this Ron Parker, or do you want to talk about this World Cup team?
Let's get into the World Cup. I mean, I know that the United States team doesn't have anybody anywhere close to it right now because, well, we got eliminated in CONCACAF or whatever the hell that is. I don't know enough about soccer. I know I like Atlanta United. I know I like Chelsea. I don't know the World Cup working and all of that. I'm a football guy. I know enough about basketball to where I'm like, I know what they're doing, but I don't know enough to where I'm like, yeah, LeBron's this much better than Michael Jordan. I don't. To me, LeBron, Michael Jordan, they're all the same. So, going back, World Cup is soccer. I know that it's soccer. I understand that soccer is when you kick the ball back and forth down the field. Now you got basically like 10 guys on each side. Basic stuff is what I understand about soccer.
There you go. Right? This is why this is going to be fun. Because I feel like I
know that much.
I feel like I'm an expert here and I don't even know that much about soccer. Like I've been trying to follow a little bit along with the World Cup, but I basically watch like 10 minutes of a game and get bored and go do something else. So it's we'll do this. I did play soccer many years ago when I was but a young Falcons fan. And so
did you play in PE class when you were like 5 years old when everybody runs after the ball? Or did you play in like when you were old enough to know like, oh hey, I'm a midfielder?
Yeah, I played
in this area.
I played from like age 6 to 9 or something like that. So when I was 9, I kind of was like understanding how the game worked, but then I stopped playing, and so basically I have as much knowledge in the game of soccer as a 9-year-old does. So that's my level of proficiency.
And I have about as much as what, a 5-year-old?
There you go. This is gonna be fun. So basically, what we wanted to do was to look at the Falcons roster and basically draft like 7 people to play on our soccer team. We're gonna get a goalie. We're gonna get 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, 2 forwards. Whether that's the best way of going about it, who knows? But like that's what we're going to do here, and we'll also sort of be drafting the best guys from around the NFC South and sort of pitting them together and see who's going to win. Obviously, the NFC South is like 3 teams worth of players, and the Falcons are 1 worth of players. But it doesn't matter. It's just we're having fun. So for me, looking at the goalie, I wanted a guy that was athletic enough to be able to make those diving catches, had the big hands, the big wingspan. So I went with Mohamed Sanu.
See, for me, I just wanted a guy who was a freak athlete and could catch everything thrown his way at random ass angles. And if he didn't catch it, at least it fell to the ground by him. So I went with Robert Alford because that dude is a freak athlete and could probably jump from one side of the goal to the next. So just trying to use a little bit of physics knowledge on that one.
There you go. I like that. For my defenders, I went with Keanu Neal, Isaiah Oliver. I feel like if I'm trying to wrap my head around picking football players to play soccer, I'm thinking the defensive roles are perfectly suited for defensive backs like Keanu Neal, Isaiah Oliver. Maybe not be the fastest guys out there, but will have no problems getting physical, going for the headers, maybe giving a couple of elbows and making some tackles, whatever the case may be, to basically prevent goals. And so I went with Keanu Neal and Isaiah Oliver.
Yeah, I went with Deion Jones and Keanu Neal because my view is the average defender, when I was looking at it, is about the size of a strong safety. And Deion Jones and Keanu Neal are about the size of a strong safety. So they're both that physical defender that you want in soccer. They're not going to take a flop. They're going to cause some flops, but they're not going to take a flop. So I want those guys in there.
Yeah. Now, I interestingly went Deion Jones for one of my midfielders. Robert Alford was my other midfielder. I wanted Alford's speed and as you referred to, Scott, that freak athleticism. But I really like Deion Jones as a midfielder just because of the speed, because I do think he's actually faster than both Keanu Neal and Isaiah Oliver, at least in the long speed or whatever. And I feel like he'd be, just killing it with like headers and whatnot on, if we were doing crosses or something. So I feel like having Deion Jones as my midfielder means he can play some defense, means he can get a little bit involved, get a little physical down in the box with some guys, with some crossers and whatnot. I felt like Deion Jones was a good fit as a midfielder.
That's kind of where I disagree with you in that I think you need a guy who's a ball handler in the midfield. And that's where Mohamed Sanu comes in. One, he actually has soccer experience somewhere. So I do think that he would be a good fit for a midfielder. When I was covering the Spain team back in 2012 for the World Cup, pulled it out of my butt. When I was covering the Spain team for 2012 for the World Cup, they had this guy, Iniesta, and he was the best ball handler I've seen. I didn't know people could kick a ball that effectively, exactly on target. So I think Sanu would be the absolute closest. The other guy that I want, just because he's probably the fastest player on the team, but nobody realizes it, is Desmond Trufant. Because I need that long speed there. Now, outside of like Julio, but I'm saving Julio for later.
Fair enough. Now, for me, with the forwards, I feel like these are classic your wide receiver positions. So I obviously went with Julio Jones. I feel like he would be, the greatest scorer of all time if he played soccer. And the other choice, I was tough with this because I didn't want to automatically go Calvin Ridley. I was trying to figure out, and I was very close to giving it to Desmond Trufant. I was thinking about having Tevin Coleman just to have that speed and that ability. I don't know if it's a thing in soccer, but it's a thing in football. So I imagine having that speed to stretch a defense would be very valuable. But then I thought about how easily Tevin Coleman trips over his own feet. And so I figured that would be not very good for soccer when you're trying to set up these goals. So I wound up just settling with Calvin Ridley. I feel like, he could be an elite scorer with that front line. I feel like I can get a lot of goals.
I think that's fair. I think I went with the same guys. So for pretty much the same reason.
There you go.
Yeah, no, Julio Jones is a freak athlete, and no one can cover the man. Tevin Coleman would have been fun, but again, he falls on his own feet too often. So I wanted a guy who I've seen with probably the fanciest footwork ever coming out of college, and that's Calvin Ridley. Like, I've never seen a dude who runs routes like Calvin Ridley come straight out of college since Andrew Hawkins. I know people are probably going, who the fuck are you talking about? But arguably the best route runner of the last 10 seasons in the NFL. Hawk.
I'm a big fan of Hawk. I was kind of disappointed that we got Taylor Gabriel because I thought there was a chance that maybe we could get Andrew Hawkins instead from the Browns. But, it worked out fine.
Yeah, I'm cool either way.
Yeah. Let's talk about the team that they might be facing from the NFC South All-Stars. Now, for me and the goalie, again, with the same methodology I had Mohamed Sanu, but let's just get a bigger guy to be that goalie and would be, with his massive frame and catch radius, would be impossible to score on. I went with Mike Evans.
Yeah. Your theory is better than mine for this one. I just went with the guy who likes to hold on to balls quite often and hold on to pretty much everything quite often. I went with Marshawn Lattimore because he just likes to hold on to everything.
There you go. See, that's why I went with Marshawn Lattimore for my defensive because I feel like he can, when teams are trying to set up those scores, he can get that little hook and hold on to a guy and prevent, disrupt those crossers. Him and Quan Alexander were my two defensive guys.
Yeah, I just went with guys who are going to be able to run with everybody because I'm thinking, if I got to go against Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, I need the speed. I need the quick change ability that guys that you need in that area. That's Justin Evans and James Bradbury. In that short area, that's the best you're going to find outside of Marshawn Lattimore and, Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford in the NFC South.
There you go. Now, for my midfielders, I went with Alvin Kamara and Cam Newton. Why I chose these guys, because I just feel like, Cam Newton is just going to be a beast on headers, just like he's just going to be impossible to stop on a header. And I just figured because Kamara's real quick, he'd make a really good midfielder. Not a whole lot of thought going into it. Much more thought went into who my forwards were, who I'll tell you guys in a minute.
So the size thing is why I went with Mike Evans there. Similar thought on Cam Newton, better athlete. Because, yes, Mike Evans is a better athlete than Cam Newton.
You don't say.
And then Curtis Samuel was my other one. Because, again, I just want that dude who can chase people down. And Samuel's got 4.31 speed. You need that speed in the midfield.
Yes, I was very close to putting Curtis Samuel on my team. Really, in this Alvin Kamara spot, but I just went with Kamara just because he's Alvin friggin' Kamara. So for my forwards, I went with speed. I just went speed. I got the two fastest guys in the division. Went with Ted Ginn and Dante Jackson. 4.31 sub. Jackson ran like a 4.28, didn't he? And I think Ginn's speed is legendary. So we're just running on teams. That's my strategy. I just went the fast guys.
I went with guys who have a nose for the ball and nose for the end zone. So I went with Brent Grimes and Deshaun Jackson. Guys who could probably juke someone out of their shoes with the ball or, just beat them on a line. Deshaun Jackson may be older now, but he still has that kind of speed and that kind of juke ability. Do you not remember the punt return on that freakish comeback that Mike Vick came back on with the Eagles? I think it was Eagles-Giants. Love that game. That's one of my favorite comebacks of all time. And Deshaun Jackson just kills it.
Yep, there you go. So, looking at these two teams head-to-head, Scott, who do you feel like would come out on top? What are these matchups looking at? Do you trust Robert Alford and Mohamed Sanu in the goal, or do you feel like the NFC South All-Stars got a little bit too much firepower? What are your thoughts on these matchups?
I mean, I think no matter what would happen, we'd see a really shitty soccer game.
Okay.
These guys are two left feet kind of dudes when it comes to soccer. They're great athletes, but I think there might be one dude out of all of them that's any good at soccer, and that'd be Mohamed Sanu. And then you'd have Julio Jones, who's just good at everything. Who could be like that second guy who'd be like, yeah, I mean, just pass me the ball, I'll kick it in, and then it kicks in, and you're like, what the hell happened here? We
Yeah,
totally missed the ball on putting that.
in the Cam Newtons of the world. If you did have if soccer was as big in this country as it is in most of the world, where if it's not the number one sport, it's a very close number two sport, then you would basically have the equivalent of like LeBron James level athletes playing that sport here. And I think if that was the case, then America would just absolutely dominate the World Cup without a doubt. But obviously,
So
if you're just
go globally. Look at all the best athletes. Imagine Russell Westbrook. Imagine, you know, Chris Paul. Imagine LeBron, of course, Kevin Durant. These massive dudes playing soccer. Now imagine Julio Jones and Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham. Like, and Odell Beckham even sounds like a guy who should be on the U.S. national soccer team. Like, and then you see that hair and it all just fits.
yeah, like
Best team by far.
Yeah, so like what I was gonna say is like, yeah, if you took these guys off the street right now and said, "Let's go play some soccer," they'd be terrible. But I feel like if you gave them like 2 years to just like practice soccer, like these guys would be amazing. And I feel like football and basketball are kind of funny because I feel like if those two sports didn't exist, like the two sports in America that would benefit the most is soccer and boxing, because I feel like all the offensive and defensive linemen, if the football didn't exist, would just basically become heavyweight boxers or MMA stars.
I think
and so,
MMA
like
more than boxing.
Today, nowadays, yeah, I think MMA they would gear towards MMA, but I feel like soccer is just basically screwed as long as people are playing basketball and football and to a lesser extent baseball and whatnot. Soccer is always going to be an afterthought in this country. So that's my 2 cents. Obviously, I know there may be some soccer heads out there that very much disagree, but there you have it, guys. World Cup takes on Falcon Central Radio. We do got a question from Evan Birchfield. He's asked, "Who is your World Cup sleeper team?" Do you have one, Scott?
You're asking a guy who has watched about 7 minutes of the World Cup who he's going to pick as his sleeper team. Can I be honest with you? I don't really know who's playing in the World Cup.
Fair enough.
Brazil?
I'll take you off the hook here, Scott. I do have a sleeper team, because of my former friend Alan Sturk is a first generation Croatian American. I have been
model, a real Falcons Zoolander.
I have been sort of on the side hoping that Croatia would make a pretty deep run, because I know he is a big fan of their soccer team and always seems to be disappointed every 4 years when they don't quite live up to expectations. I think they won their group in a group with Argentina and whatnot, so they're looking pretty good.
They're in the round of 16. I just pulled it up, and so is Brazil. All right, so yeah, Brazil.
There you go. Brazil's in it.
I don't think Brazil's a sleeper though. They won like 7 times, but
we'll see.
Oh wait, no, hold on. I'm going Portugal because of
Ronaldo. That's a good choice. I think I don't know. Anyway, let's move on and talk about NBA, since we're drafting fantasy sports teams and taking football players and asking them to change another sport. We're just following on the heels of an NBA draft. NBA free agency is going to be a monster this year just because of the LeBron James sweepstakes. So we figured, why not join the fun and pick the best players on the Falcons as well as the NFC South that we would build a 6-man roster with: center, power forward, small forward, shooting guard, point guard, and 6-man. So, Scott, I will allow you the honors. Who do you want to start off with?
Well, first, let me say, if LeBron James wants a real challenge, he should come to Atlanta, play for the Hawks, help us get our shit together, and then leave. And
that would be a real challenge. That would
or at least get us to draft Bronny. LeBron James Jr. That being said, if I was going to pick my Falcons team, I'm going to pick based on athletic profile in a way. I do think that there's certain types of athletes that you need at certain. I think for center, you need a guy. Now, considering we're going against other NFL players, I don't need a 7-foot center, but I need a center who's going to be like 6'5" or tall. But I want a better athlete and like a better in the paint type athlete. So I'm going to go with a tight end, a guy like Austin Hooper. I know you're facing a lot of tough, big dudes down there. I mean, you may have to face Peppers because you got Carolina, and Peppers is about 6'6", 290. But I think Hooper could hold his own. Now, NBA's moved to a smaller game. They've gotten more speed at the board. I think most of new kind of plays football like that power. So for me, I would have to put him there. I think he's perfect fit, and then you could use him as that point forward, more like a Chris Webber type. Now, Julio Jones may not be, but as a small, he could flash to and dunk. That's what I would. Give me Julio, just how happy everyone have good, you know.
Scott, your audio is cutting out a little bit.
Sorry. So Julio is that flash and go, dunk on your ass kind of center. And then at shooting guard, have Desmond Trufant. Because he's the kind of guy he's not going to let anybody have. He's probably going to tell and then and then
Okay. So if you guys were having some audio issues, Scott had Trufant as his shooting guard, Calvin Ridley as his point guard, and Tevin Coleman as his sixth man. It's a solid squad, Scott. I had to go with Trader, and I need to have that down low presence. I know he played some college ball, I think, before he started transferring to Valdosta State. So I feel like, I'm in good hands with the big 6'7" guy as my rim protector. He's going to be quickly pulled off the court, though, for my sixth man. I feel like Deion Jones is the perfect sixth man because he feels like he's going to be that hustle guy. He's got speed. He can jump. He can rebound. If I need him to rebound, he can do that. I feel like he can be my Draymond Green on this roster. Deion Jones is my sixth man. So when I go small ball, my power forward, my big man is going to be Austin Hooper. I feel like Austin Hooper could be that nice stretch four, can hit that 18-foot jumper, and really be a force on the perimeter a little bit more so than being an inside presence. Julio Jones, small forward again. I think you're right, Scott. Julio is just like the perfect, when we're picturing the type of basketball player that Julio could or should be, he'd be the perfect wingman. My shooting guard is Tevin Coleman. I just want speed. I want a guy that's going to be able to take guys off the dribble. He's probably going to be tripping all over his feet, but I just want that sort of Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook type of, penetrator, and I feel like Tevin Coleman could be that guy. My point guard is Robert Alford. I feel like he's just got the best combination of speed, quickness, athleticism. I was very close to putting Calvin Ridley on my team, but then I realized that he can't jump. His vertical leaps are terrible, and I figured, if you're going to play basketball, you should probably be able to jump. So that's the main reason why I left Calvin Ridley on my team, but he was very close to making it.
See, the counter on that argument is Muggsy Bogues played point guard. Nate Robinson played point guard. Well, Robinson can jump, but Muggsy couldn't jump. Muggsy couldn't dunk. Muggsy could barely get off the ground, but he was such a sick ball handler and had so much speed that it didn't matter what he could or couldn't do with his jump. He had at least a decent shot, and I think Ridley's the kind of guy who would have a good enough shot that he'd be fine. And he's got a 30-inch vertical. It's not like he's a shit vertical. It's not like he's got my vertical out there, that like nice 8-inch jump off the ground, barely move kind
Okay. All right. Who do you got on your NFC South team?
Well, at center, I think we agree on this one. I think it's going to be Julius Peppers. He played at UNC as a power forward. He's about 6'6". He's going to knock some dudes on their ass, knock some dudes on their head. I mean, Peppers is definitely my center. At power forward, I go with a little bit more speed than you might. I'm going with Mike Evans. Same kind of thought, but I figure a big wide receiver is going to be a good power. At small forward, I'm going Mike Thomas from the Saints. Again, he's a little bit bigger. He's basically the answer to Julio Jones at best. There's not another guy like Julio. At shooting guard, I'm going Ted Ginn. I need a guy who's got that kind of speed and straw. Then at point guard, I went with little man Brent Grimes. The Muggsy Bogues theory comes back into play. And then sixth man, another guy who's just, to me, I view this guy as like a Jamal Crawford. He just goes out there, he scores from deep. Deshaun Jackson. If you couldn't, one of my favorite players in the NFC South that's not himself is Deshaun Jackson.
Okay. My team, my NFC South All-Stars, Julius Peppers, center, obvious choice. He played at UNC. He would have been an NBA player if he hadn't been, such a freak NFL prospect. I honestly think in sort of going through my mental Rolodex of like the three freakiest athletes I've ever seen in terms of me watching football, Michael Vick is one, Julius Peppers is two. I'm trying to think of if there's somebody other than maybe Julio that would be three. I can't think of anybody, so we'll slot Julio in as three. It's, crazy choice there, but yeah, like Julius Peppers is a freak. So he probably, if he actually played in the NBA, he probably could still be kicking it in the NBA as like a backup power forward foul guy. I don't know. Marcin Gortat's still in the league, so I'm sure Julius Peppers could still be in the league. Power forward, I had the same attitude with the Austin Hooper. I wanted tight end. I went with O.J. Howard. Obviously has massive size, massive athleticism. I feel like he's more of a, he can post guys up with his frame and whatnot. Small forward, I went with Mike Evans. I like the length. I feel like he could be like a jump shooter. And with, at 6'5", 6'6", he could, not NBA players, but NFL players, he could shoot over guys at that size. My shooting guard is Marshawn Lattimore. I like him to be my defensive specialist. He's just going to hold guys.
To hold on to people every day.
But Marshawn is a pretty freaky athlete as well, so it fits. And my point guard, same thought process. I just went with the younger version of Brent Grimes, although he hasn't quite lived up to Brent Grimes as a football player. Maybe he can outperform Brent Grimes as a basketball player. I went with Vernon Hargreaves, another guy that really tested exceedingly well when he was coming out of school. Hasn't quite turned it into being a more than a okay NFL player at this point. And my sixth man was Cam Newton. I just got to have Cam Newton on my team. I feel like Cam could be a jack of all trades. He could be a low post guy. He could be a shooter. He could do all the things. As my sixth man, I wouldn't have to worry about him having to play a whole lot of defense or whatnot. So he can come off the bench and get me like 15 points or something like that. So that's my football squad, I guess. So Scott, do you feel better that these several individuals, rather than in the soccer field, could actually put together a mildly decent basketball game if they went head to head?
Oh, I think it'd be a much better basketball game. I think it'd at least be a watchable basketball game. I mean, on a soccer field, two left feet. Basketball to football is a lot more comparable. It's just whoever has the best shot. So we may end up getting them out there, and Justin Hardy's the best shooter out of all of them. And we're like, all right, well, Justin Hardy's my shooting guard. But like on the football field, he may not be the best player. But that happens. We may get out there and Vic Beasley is just a monster power forward. Crap, we gotta put Vic Beasley out there.
I thought about putting Vic Beasley on my team because he could jump. That's basically
Well, yeah, but then we also saw him miss that dunk on the goalpost.
That's what came into my mind, and I was like, I don't know if he can finish. I do not know
Yeah,
about that.
no, we're good.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We still have some mailbag questions that we do want to get to. Of course, we have to start things off with the incomparable Evan Birchfield. His first question is: considering Julio is most likely going to get paid, do you have any idea what the cap situation will be like?
Atlanta could actually open up some cap if they modify some of the details on Julio's deal. So, do I know exactly what's going to happen? No. Could they open up a million or two? I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, man. I think my thought process is they'll do what the Steelers did with Antonio Brown, which is take some of his next year's base salary, turn it into a signing bonus, prorate it over like the next 3 years. So like if you take 2 million of his next year's salary and give it to him as signing bonus, that's 2 million more that Julio's going to make this year. So it's basically in his eyes, at least from his bottom line, it's a raise of $2 million. But you only have to factor in about 700K against the salary cap because it's spread out over 3 years because it's treated like a signing bonus. So like that to me makes the most sense. Now whether it's 2 million or 3 million or 4 million or whatever that number is, I feel like the Falcons can give Julio more money. Don't have to tear up his current contract and set a bad precedent that basically if you don't like your contract 3 years before it's up, you can hold out and get a new one. But can pay him, make him happy, and have it really not majorly affect their salary cap. That to me seems like the smartest strategy and the easiest way to handle it. And because of that, I don't think it's been that big a deal with the holdout as dramatic as it has been, with the back and forth over the last several weeks. But if the Falcons don't do that, then I guess it might be a little bit more complicated. That just seems to be the easiest and simplest way to make everybody happy, in my eyes. Evan's next question is: the Falcons were among several teams on hand for DB Brandon Bryant's pro day before the supplemental draft. Any thoughts on him and perhaps the Falcons' interests?
Now, this is the question that I was very, very interested in. Because Brandon Bryant is a very good cornerback. And it is he's fast. He's got great size. He runs a solid cone, a solid shuttle. Had he actually been working out and like practicing for his cone and shuttle, he would have done better. He is a strong freak athlete, but I think in Atlanta he might fit a little bit better as a safety than as. That's just my thoughts on it. I watched. He's very intelligent with his coverage, but he does like to hit. So let's see what happens. I don't think the Falcons are going to take any of the 3 defensive backs that are there in the supplemental draft, but we could see.
Yeah, I haven't been paying too much attention to the supplemental draft, or at least watching any of these guys, even though I keep hearing how talented they are. Just because I think with the additions of Parker as well as Isaiah Oliver, the Falcons are pretty set in terms of their secondary goes. And so adding another young, talented player, while that would be great, you're basically, if you're drafting a supplemental guy at this point, and historically speaking, supplemental guys do absolutely nothing their rookie years, historically. I'm sure there's a couple of exceptions out there, but for the most part, those guys basically just are inactive for their entire rookie years because they haven't gone through the off season and basically just show up at training camp, and that's the first exposure that they've had to an NFL, camp and roster, and they're playing catch up. They're 3 months behind everybody else. So I think if the Falcons were to be interested in any of the supplemental guys, it would have to be at a position where they could basically afford to stash a guy for a year. And I think with all the additions that they made in the secondary, with Parker and Bethel and Oliver, as well as Casey's development, bringing back Bleedy Ray Wilson and all those guys, I don't feel like there's room for any of the DBs. But if there's another sort of young, athletic, talented guy at, say, linebacker or tight end or something like that, then maybe I could see the Falcons maybe taking a late round flyer on that guy, but I haven't heard if any of those players are available.
That's where I could see them liking Brandon Bryant. Brandon Bryant's a 6 foot tall, 220-pound safety, but he runs a 4.45. I could see the Falcons looking at him as maybe he could be our weak side linebacker next to Deion Jones long term. We could move Campbell over, but I don't think they would spend anything more than a fifth on him in the supplemental.
Okay, there you go. So, next question comes from Brian at your homeboy Brian on Twitter. He asks, do you guys think Calvin Ridley and Ito Smith will make an immediate impact this season? If so, how much? I realize in Smith's case, it would depend on if Freeman and Coleman stay healthy.
I think if either Freeman or Coleman goes down, Ito Smith is basically that third guy who can do a little bit of everything that the Falcons like. I guess I realized early in the draft process just how similar he was to Devontae Freeman, and he's one of my favorite running backs in this past draft. And I think if either one of those guys goes down, the Falcons have yet another Devontae Freeman type guy. Now, Calvin Ridley is going to play impact from day one. He could very easily be the number 2 wide receiver before the end of the season, with Mohamed Sanu being that third guy and that possession receiver for the red zone type guy. So right now, Ridley's going to play a huge impact, a huge role. They don't have to teach him much more than the offense, which he's already known quite a bit of, because it's not like Nick Saban runs a basic style scheme there. He runs a West Coast NFL style scheme. So Ridley won't have as much of a transfer as other guys would, like as much of a setback learning from college to the pros. And he's going to go from arguably one of the worst quarterback situations that he's ever played under to one of the best quarterback situations in the NFL. With a guy who knows the scheme like the back of his hand and a guy who is going to give him the ball with a lot of room to run.
Okay. I think with Ito Smith, I think if he's going to make an impact, it's going to be as a kickoff returner, because I just don't expect Freeman or Coleman to miss enough time for him to do much on offense this year. Who knows? Obviously, no one knows the answer to that. But my expectations right now for Ito Smith is if he does contribute much, it's going to be as a kickoff returner. And then again, kickoff returners really don't contribute a whole lot to your team. So I'm not expecting a whole lot about Ito Smith. Ridley is an interesting case because, generally speaking, wide receivers do not come in and have this monster impact. My expectations for what Ridley is going to do is I think there will be games and there will be moments throughout the season where he will make big plays and be a big part of the offense. But then I think there will be long stretches of games where he's sort of an afterthought and sort of barely involved in the offense. And I think that's just sort of the normal ups and downs that he's going to have. I think sort of what's hurting Ridley from having a monster impact is the fact that he's going to have a limited workload just because he's not going to be expected to come in and right away and get starting reps. I think what that will do, though, it will allow him to basically take advantage of what opportunities do come his way. But I think in terms of, like, trying to think of an analogy, like, the opportunities he does get, he'll take the most out of it, but he won't have as many opportunities, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I think overall you will see an impact. I don't think it will be a huge impact, but I do think there will certainly be matchups and moments this season that he will be able to take advantage of and flash the potential that I think everybody expects of him long term in Atlanta. But I don't expect him to sort of come in right away and light things up. Brian's next question is, if we lose a good defensive player or two next year to free agency, do you think we can rely on Dan Quinn's drafting ability and coaching skills to keep our defense rolling? After all, Seattle's defense has never been quite the same since he left.
Yes, I do, especially up front. But the question is, who's going to be leaving after next year? The Falcons still have Jarrett. They'll still have Beasley. Well, I mean, Jarrett's under contract right now for 2018, but after 2018, there's not a defensive player I could see the Falcons losing except for maybe Alford or Grady Jarrett. I don't see him letting Grady Jarrett go. Now, in 2 years, you'll have to really worry because that's when Deion Jones, that's when Devondre Campbell, that's when Keanu Neal all come up. So that's when I would worry. But for right now, I think the Falcons are good for at least 2 seasons. Yeah, they may lose Brooks Reed. Yeah, they may lose what's his name, Brooks Reed and Robert Alford. But outside of those two, I think they're going to keep everybody else on the roster.
Yeah, I do think, we can rely on Dan Quinn's drafting ability and coaching skills to keep the defense rolling. At this point in time, I don't think the Falcons are going to, if they lose anybody over the next year or two, I don't think it's going to be anybody essential. I think it's going to be players like we saw with Poe, where like that's going to be really the biggest loss that we suffer. Poe is a good player. Poe was a big contributor to the team last year, but I wouldn't necessarily say Poe was a core piece that is irreplaceable. Like, I feel like with a high enough draft pick, you can replace Don Terry Poe. It just may not. The issue is it may not come immediately, like with a guy like Deidre Sanat, where he won't be at a Poe level until like 2020 or something like that. So I do feel like Dan Quinn will be able to get the pieces in to sort of supplement that. I think he's done a really good job adding talent to this roster. And, outside of, I guess, Jalen Collins hasn't really missed on anybody. It wasn't like Jalen Collins wasn't talented enough. They just, he was a knucklehead. So that happens from time to time. So we'll see. I feel like the defense is in good hands. To me, the bigger questions with the Falcons sort of much more geared towards their offense and sort of, Sark and whether or not they're quite as good as developing talent on that side of the ball under Dan Quinn as they've been on the defensive side of the ball. So that to me is a much bigger concern than necessarily any players that the Falcons may lose on defense over the next offseason or two. I feel like most of those guys are fairly replaceable with, early and mid-round talents. Last question comes from Brian. He asks, do you think Sark will utilize Tevin Coleman more in the passing game this year?
I think he's going to have to, but if you look at the difference in the targets from 2016 to 2017, Coleman had about the same amount of targets. It's just the way he was targeted. So I think the Falcons are going to look more into how they targeted these guys this year and try and get them more open. And I think having Greg Knapp in there to kind of review the offense and say, this works, this does not work, you don't do this again. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, boy, I hope he does. Sark, in terms of utilizing Tevin Coleman more in passing game. I can't imagine him using him less. So yeah, I do expect that to happen. I do expect Sark to make efforts to make those improvements. The question, I guess, is going to be whether those efforts are sustained and whether or not they actually, bear fruit, so to speak. So, I think a lot of the areas that were openly criticized with Sark's offense last year, they will be improved upon this year. I expect, even if, my biggest complaint about Sark's offense was sort of the vanilla route concepts that he utilized. But I feel like one of the benefits of having a player like Calvin Ridley is you can kind of run vanilla route concepts, and he's the type of receiver that can still thrive in that type of offense. And, whether we see him thriving this year, again, goes back to an earlier question, how much impact he's going to have. But I do think certainly long term, he should be able to have a high level of success, even with some of the question marks I have about Sark's offense. But when it comes to Tevin Coleman, yeah, I think that's going to be something we're going to see. I do think we will probably see an increase in the amount of times where we see Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman lined up in the backfield together. That was an effective formation for them last year, and I think we might see more of that this year. So I think we'll see more of it, and I kind of do look forward to seeing what, if any, new wrinkles Sark throws out there that can at least get me a little bit excited about, okay, he really did do his homework during the offseason. So, guys, that is it. We appreciate you guys tuning in on this very special Thursday night. Sorry for the inconvenience and for not doing the show as usual on Tuesday. But we'll be back in 2 weeks on Tuesday to get you guys geared up for training camp. As I said at the top of the show, there are about 2 more episodes before we get to that week of training camp, 2 more Tuesdays or every other week before we get there. And so we'll probably be previewing offense and defense and the big storylines and whatnot to get you geared for that. But in the meantime, if you want to get your content and questions answered on the show, you can use the hashtag Falcons Mailbag on Twitter. Of course, you can tweet at the show at FalconsPFC. I'm at FalcFans. Scott is at Karasik S. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Falcon Central Radio is the Facebook page. Pro Football Central is the YouTube page. Like it. Make sure you hit the bell for the notifications so you know when we go live. Same thing on Facebook, all that type of stuff. You know what to do. I'm running out of breath, and we hope to see you guys in 2 weeks. Okay, I think we're still going live.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so. I think our producer is still in traffic. So,
fun.
All right. So, I guess now you guys get to see behind the footage.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess we'll just have to just keep vamping until
bullshitting.
So, Scott, what's going on with your life?
I was working as a temp for a minute, and then now I'm full-time at SunTrust. So, yeah, there's that. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's easy. I basically call people up, and I'm like, yo, dude, I see you got a mortgage. You sure you don't want a checking account to go with that? And since our producer is, being our producer, I'm just going to hang out like I normally hang out with Aaron for the show. Y'all just have to deal with it.
There you go. So, what's going on with me? I hurt my foot the other day. It's been bothering me all week. I refuse to go to urgent care because it costs too much money, and my health insurance sucks. So I'm just basically just been taking an L the whole week, limping around, but it's getting better. And been trying to eat
an L, but tonight you bounce back.
Been trying to eat better. Been eating a little bit more fruit. Trying to cut certain things out of my diet, eat more fruits and vegetables and whatnot. And we'll see how it plays off. Hopefully, we can get back on this weight loss plan. Yeah. But, in these days of sort of eating more vegetables and whatnot, I've had a very, very strong craving for some chicken wings. And I can't really shake it. So, I hope you guys can pray for me out there and allow me to stay strong and sort of lay off the chicken wings for a little bit.
Wait. Aaron laying off chicken wings.
Yeah, I know. It's tough.
That's like me laying off ice cream. I could do it, but it's very tough. I gave up sodas, right? But I still had to cheat and do tea, and that's how I gave up sodas. So it's not that much of a difference. But you giving up chicken wings, what do you do? Go get nuggets instead?
It's not going to be permanent, but I'm just trying to maybe I'll just try to lay low until the season starts, and then I can pick out or whatever the case may be. But I'm trying to eat better and watch what I eat and whatnot.
Yeah, Brian. So I just hit up our producer. He's like, yeah, so I'm stuck in the drive-thru right now. If y'all hang up, it will end the show.
Okay, there you go. So guys.
I I don't want to be that guy, but you might have to deal with some black screen in a minute because, yeah, some of us want to have a life.
There you go. So, guys, welcome to this behind the scenes episode of Falcons Central Radio. We appreciate you guys for tuning in late. Scott, I bid you adieu.
Peace out.
Bye, everyone.